Hey guys, welcome to the video where today it's the showdown of the MP5s. On one side we have the Modern Warfare MP5 that has been the go-to secondary weapon, at least until the R9 came out and ruined everything. And on the other side, the Cold War MP5, recently added to Warzone and a very strong contender for the top spot. This is going to be a good one. Alright, I'm gonna break down the video into parts, so if you want to skip ahead to a certain section, feel free to do that. Also, if I sound a bit weird, it's because I have a cold, but you know what? The grind doesn't stop. So first we're gonna look at the guns and their attachments separately, because essentially these guns are from two different games being ported into one, and there's a lot of differences here that need to be compared. Secondly, I'll show you how I had both my MP5s built, just your average class setup, and then to finish it off, the final verdict, followed by a discussion on the rapidly changing SMG meta in Warzone. Before we start, if you're going to enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more Warzone content like this. Alright then, let's start off with comparing the guns in their stock versions. Level 1, just like the way you unlock them. So since they're both literally the same gun, they both have 30 round magazines, a very similar damage range model, and pretty much the same iron sights, although the Modern Warfare ones are a bit cleaner and less obstructive. But there are two major differences: recoil and mobility. The Cold War MP5 has more of both. So with both MP5s, major recoil handling is required with the initial burst of vertical recoil when you start firing. This stops after 15 to 20 rounds of continuous fire, after which the recoil is minimal and can be easily handled. But when you compare the recoil between the two, the Cold War MP5 has almost double the amount of initial vertical recoil as compared to the Modern Warfare one. This puts it at a major disadvantage when it comes to consistent firing. But it also has higher mobility because of how movement works in Cold War multiplayer. So I know what you're thinking. That's what attachments are for, right? To change the stats you want. And while that's technically true, that may not help in this case. Let me explain. The Modern Warfare weapons were made in this engine for this game and were balanced as such. Cold War weapons were made for a completely different game which had a different engine, and they've been ported into Warzone now. And frankly, they're horrible. Not just the MP5, most Cold War weapons are this way. They just can't compete with Modern Warfare weapons. The attachments for Cold War weapons just don't change or affect the right stats that are needed for Warzone. So let's take the case in point with the MP5 into consideration here. We have high recoil and amazing mobility. But then if you try to balance out that recoil with some attachments, they take away the mobility with something like ADS time or sprint to fire time, sprinting move speed, or something else that's critical to the gun's performance. It always feels like you're gaining this one thing at the cost of another. Now if you take a look at the Modern Warfare MP5 on the other hand, it's an amazing gun without attachments, and as you keep adding attachments to it, it only seems to gain and not lose. I mean, of course you technically do lose some stats, but it's not nearly as much as with the Cold War MP5. And another plus for it is that it's been in the game since the beginning, so everyone knows the one perfect build that they're supposed to go with in their loadout. Another thing is that I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video right now still has to level up their Cold War weapons. And Cold War guns level up incredibly slow, so maybe the grind for the MP5 isn't even worth it. Maybe there is that one perfect build for it out there, or maybe it's gonna get buffed in a future patch. Who knows? But me personally, I would not spend time leveling up this gun until the time that it actually gets buffed. Alright, now let's move on to the class setups for these guns. So here's how I had my Cold War MP5 built. I used the SOCOM Eliminator. For my muzzle, it gives you that vertical recoil control, but as you can see, you lose some shooting move speed. Next up is the Microflex LED. I prefer it over iron sights because it's way more cleaner. If you do like to use the iron sights though, you could go with a laser or any of the stocks. That's personal preference, it's totally up to you. Next up, I use the SASR Jungle Grip for that ADS time and flinch resistance. In close quarters combat, you are often getting shot back from the enemy as you're shooting at them. so flinch resistance is really helpful there. Next up, for the ammunition, I use the jungle style mag. I would have went with something with a higher magazine capacity, but anything more than 30 rounds just gives a huge hit to your mobility, and that's something that defeats the whole purpose of the MP5 being a close quarters combat gun. Alright, next up, as an underbarrel, the Field Agent Grip. This gives you both vertical and horizontal recoil control, takes away some of that shooting move speed, but to be perfectly honest, you don't really need that if you have your ADS time and sprinting move speed still intact. Alright, now let's move on to the Modern Warfare MP5 build. This is pretty much the standard go-to build that everyone has been using. You go with the subsonic integral suppressor, covers up your muzzle flash, no minimap sign. Then you go with the Commando foregrip, the 45 round mags, and the TAC laser. And then finally, for the stock, you go with the FTAC collapsible. This build just works, it's very reliable, it's proven itself time and time again through the seasons of Warzone. You just basically can't go wrong with this build. Okay, it's time to draw the video to a close. And I have to say, it's not been nearly as close as I expected it to be. To me, the Modern Warfare MP5 beats the crap out of the Cold War MP5 in every aspect possible. With the stock guns and the guns with attachments, the Modern Warfare MP5 takes the win every single time. It even wins in aspects that don't affect gameplay. The Modern Warfare MP5's camos are way better, and the weapon charms are amazing as well. Although, given time, I think with the next year of support coming to Cold War, they could catch up. Okay, so now that the showdown of the MP5s is done, I want to kind of talk about the SMG category as a whole. So for me, both of these MP5s are actually now irrelevant. If you want a close quarters gun with an extremely fast time to kill, the Mac 10, newly added in with the Season 1 Battle Pass, is the go-to weapon choice. Whereas, if you want something that's more consistent and suitable for up to close to mid-ranges like 20 to 30 meters, I've always found the MP7 to be a way better option than the MP5, and the newly added AK-74U from Cold War is in the same bus. So, if you're still using the MP5, fair play to you. You must really like it. And for good reason, it's a pretty good gun. But I just think it's gonna go missing from the top meta loadouts moving forward. That of course is a personal opinion, and many of you will disagree. That's completely fine. Alright guys, I think that's about everything I want to cover in this video. Again, make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed the video, it really helps me out. And yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Oswald Rome, and I'll see you in the next one.